I guess I'm saying I like the Moneybagg Yo track more than the Hove and Nas track somehow.
Go subscribe, yeah, subscribe.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Brews and Reviews. It's Knowledge, and today I'm reviewing DMX's new album, Exodus, and I am sipping on a Kostritzer Schwarzbier. That is a dark lager, a dark beer for the memory of Dark Man X. Let's go ahead and get into this. Just a couple things to note before I get into the album review. First of all, I apologize in advance for my voice. It's a little scratchy right now because I was at the R.A. the Rugged Man and Afro show last night. And it got a little wild, it got a little crazy, as you can see from my new intro there. Full review of that show coming soon. And also, before I get into the album review, I want to pay a little respect to the dog, DMX, Exodus being his first posthumous album. And if you didn't live through the 90s, you may not have the perspective of what this artist was really about. He brought the grimy back to hip-hop, to New York hip-hop specifically, when the shiny suit era was in full swing. Puff Daddy had his influence over everything. Even Nas was coming through with shiny suits and getting a little more glossy in his rhymes versus the grimy style that we got from him. But DMX was just about as grimy as they come from his voice, obviously, to the pared down beats that Rough Riders produced, courtesy of people like Swizz Beatz, who's all over this album, and Dame Grease. And not only did he bring the grime back, but he came through with his own flow. The way that he would conversationally change his intonation at the end of lines and so forth had not really been done before. And it made his words feel very conversational and like he was telling you something very important. An example of this showed up on his very first single, Get At Me Dog, and he carried it until the end. On that single, he says, "What's this? I thought you was kill us, demented. The fuck you want me to do for this coward? Finish him. It's ended." Now, I didn't do that justice at all. I'm sure you know the words if you're a DMX fan at all, but there's many examples throughout his discography of that. It's Dark and Hell is Hot is a personal classic to me. I also got to see X on the Hard Knock Life tour in 1999. Here's the ticket. That is a 22-year-old ticket right there. I still have this. Still have a lot of my concert tickets from back when they actually did concert tickets. And at this show, X just had a presence. He was the newcomer at the time. Meth and Red were there. Jay-Z was there as the headliner. But DMX was at his height, and he was the newest of those artists, and his presence filled this arena. You can hear that live presence that he had on his recorded songs. And that's the reason sometimes you're listening to his old shit and it sounds like he's right there performing it as you're listening. And that's the presence that'll live on through his legacy forever. Now let's get into Exodus. This supposedly wasn't an album that was just thrown together after he died, looking for bits and scraps of his rhymes and throwing a bunch of features on that, although you might expect that just from looking at the track list. Swizz Beatz claims that it was almost completed during his life and that he oversaw the whole thing, and DMX himself did say on Talib Kweli's podcast that this album was going to have a lot of features on it. While you listen to it, though, it does have somewhat of a compilation feel, and I think they may have filled it out a little bit more than Swizz Beatz is letting on. That's My Dog, produced by Swizz Beatz and Arab Music, like many songs on this album are, and it's very clear from the opening notes that they're retaining that classic Rough Riders sound with an ominous piano loop over off-kilter drums. And speaking of compilation, it's not DMX, but Jada Jadakiss who actually gets the first verse on the album. Not that I mind that. We know that Jada always sounds great over Swizz beats, and after his verse we get Chic and we get Styles P before DMX plays Cleanup, and it feels like he had some pent up energy and something that he had to prove after he was stewing over creating this album. And it makes sense because he had just gotten out of prison and he hadn't released an album in about 9 years. He says, "When I came into the game, I crashed with a wave. I'm the best. It's something that I'm taking to the grave. Motherfuckers' jeans is too tight to be fucking with the dog. So stop fucking with me because I'm not fucking with y'all. I might have dropped the ball, but I got it right back. My man drove for the out of bounds save and shot it right back." Knowing that this is one of the last verses that he ever put on wax gives new meaning to that take it to the grave line. Bath salts. Hove and Nas have been busy collaborating on the same projects recently, although this one, it said, was recorded for the Life is Good sessions and didn't make that album and has kind of just been hanging around for the right moment. By the way, I only listened to that Khaled song once. I couldn't listen to it anymore than that, but this track already is much better. Hove actually delivers a really good verse on this with brags about needing a new bucket list every 6 months and that he needs a harem because he's got so much he's got to share them. Jay, you got the baddest chick. What do you need a harem for? We got some slick lines from Nas on his verse. He says, "Hate start with a H cause the H comes after a G. They won't say it face to face, they say it after I leave." X comes in for the third verse and does his thing, and I feel like this could have been more of a standout track. It might be the beat. We had a beat like what we get a little bit later on the album. It may have been a better backdrop for these three god MCs to shine over. Dogs Out. Despite Wayne beginning his verse with "Who let the dogs out," calling back to a song that I never want to think about again, this is still one of the better Wayne verses that I've heard in a while, and the beat is really helping his cause with the thumping bass. Love the instrumental on this, and X feels very much in his element, delivering even a more traditional DMX type of flow than we've gotten on the previous two tracks. Money, 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 and the album is really picking up now. This is a standout, and yeah, I guess I'm saying I like the Moneybagg Yo track more than the Hove and Nas track. Somehow they would have sounded good on this, and you can almost hear Pop Smoke over this beat actually, because he was supposed to be featured on this song, but the label used his verse for something else. Would have loved to hear that verse from Pop Smoke over this. And X delivers a laugh out loud moment on the chorus. He says, "A dollar ain't got a fucking thing to do with riches. Say cheese, now I got pictures of what a bitch is." He goes on in the verse to let it be known how he feels about snitches. Hold Me Down is a more commercial sounding track featuring Alicia Keys, aka Swizz Beatz' wife. It's actually amazing her and X have never worked together before, and we've got X on that thug emotional shit that he does so well. To be introspective and real without losing that edge is something that very few can master. Tupac, obviously, who influenced X, and I would say the ones that are good at it now were probably influenced by X. Skyscrapers, staying on the more introspective tip and perhaps even more commercial than the previous track. This features Bono of U2, who's done his share of hip-hop features in his day. The songs always have a very similar aesthetic to me when he appears on them, this one included, but we do have a lot of lyrical depth from DMX on this. He says, "Used to wonder why, now I enjoy the rain. Be stronger with the struggle, can't live without the pain. I just want to be heard, fuck the fame. My words will live forever. Fuck my name." And my voice is starting to get more gruff as I go on, but this is actually really fitting for a DMX review. Hood Blues, and right before this, we're back to the 90s with the stick-up skit. There was a lot of this in the 90s. Redman comes to mind amongst many others. But then we get into this song, and as soon as you hear boom, 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 you know what time it is. Griselda is here, all three central figures. So you already know this is going to be a standout track. And the sample here is from a 70s jazz track from Lee Mason called Shady Blues. And I can call out the sample because they named the track after what they sampled, so you know they paid for it legally to use it here. Great verses from all three Griselda features. I even like Westside Gunn's verse on this, but Conway is clearly the best verse and is becoming more and more the main standout and more clear the standout in Griselda. Don't get me wrong, Benny's verse is good too, but Conway's really stands out here and he's got a few more bars. DMX, matching, perhaps inspired by the energy of Griselda, delivers a very chaotic, almost distressed verse, very much like a stream of consciousness spoken word, and it really works on this track. And you know he was still alive when this song came together because he says, I done punked more than Ashton Kutcher. It's Westside Conway X Benny the Butcher. Take control, and as soon as you hear wake up, you get points if you immediately think of Bones' first of the month, but you get even more points if you recognize that they sampled Marvin Gaye's Sexual Healing, which Swizz Beatz and Denaun Porter are also doing here, even taking it a step further and sampling a portion of the song for the chorus of this one. And X is speaking to a girl bluntly on this. He says, relax, boo-boo, keep shit moving. What you see in the mirror is what I don't mind losing. And we get a verse from Snoop, who's fresh off his versus battle with DMX. And I would say that Snoop is past his prime, probably has been for a while. I have not heard a good verse from this dude in a long time. X comes back for verse 3 with some more lyrics about sexual healing, if you want to call it that. Walking in the Rain features X's son, Exodus, who this album is named after, and X is reflecting on family and his demons of the past, even telling us not to forget that Satan was an angel. We got a great bridge by Denaun Porter before Nas comes in with a stellar verse, an effortless, smooth flow. I really like this one and what he's doing here. He says, Police Precinct 114 chased him. Who should be held accountable for the hell I encountered just exploring the town I knew? This sounds like it could be at home on King's Disease for sure. Letter to My Son, we've got DMX speaking softly to his son over a drumless melody, and this track becomes even heavier knowing that DMX has passed, especially since this is somewhat of an apology and giving advice to his son. I'm sure that this will live on with Exodus as his father's message to him to go forward in life. He'll use it to come to terms with his father's death. DMX says, and I don't know what you thought about my use of drugs, but it taught you enough to not use them drugs. When you were a kid, you play with toys, okay? But you a man, put them toys away. What I'm saying is stop thinking like a child, because what if it's when I'm gone that you gotta realize you're wrong, and we could have been best friends all along. Some impressive and melancholy violin, along with some heartfelt singing from Usher, play us out, making this feel like very much a memorial to DMX. And the album ends with a prayer, carrying on the tradition of including a prayer on every one of his albums. This exceeded expectations. After seeing the track list, I thought it would be like those Biggie posthumous albums and just completely not overseen by the artist at all. And while it does still feel like a compilation, we definitely get DMX's presence, and I think the whole thing stayed true to his style. It doesn't seem like it was hastily thrown together. I believe that most of this was created when he was alive. Beats are really nice and the songs are structured well. X was definitely not in the top form as he was in the 90s, but he also didn't sound like he shouldn't be rhyming at all. He brought his pain and nuance to the forefront. We got a lot of introspective DMX on this, and he delivered many good flows as well. Since this is not merely about the music, but really a memorial and a tribute to a great artist, I'm not going to give this a rating. It's not here to be compared to other albums, but to serve as one last moment to have with this great artist. Fucking man says subscribe.
But if he's on his channel saying that somebody's album is better than mine, unsubscribe to that motherfucker.
No, your album's the best, man.
There you go. Subscribe.
Yeah.
Subscribe.